Thanks for tuning in to another show in the Next Reel family of film podcasts.
Want to skip those ads and get early access?
Become a member at truestory.fm/join and discover all the other great perks that come with it.
Picture your fear. Now imagine it big, large, looming, giant. Whether it's a slinky, black, oozy science experiment gone wrong, a beast from the forests overrun its natural barriers, or an ancient sea beast emerged from the depths with its beady eyes aimed at the hearts of all your loved ones. But bigger, enormous, gigantic, monstrous. What is it like to stand at the feet of the personification of your secret terrors as they indifferently regard you, if they even notice you at all? How does it make you feel? Small? Tiny, insignificant. As it looms over you, towering, monstrous, colossal, do you hide? Where? In the giant's own footprints? Do you flee? How do you outrun a continent? Do you form a plan? Somewhere in your infinitesimal body lies a brain? Or do you hope this titan, this colossus, this Brobdingnagian mass realizes the truth at the heart of your own fear, that you're not worth even a swipe of the claw, a swing of a tail, a little puff of fire breath. You're itty-bitty, piddling, inconsequential. With that, from True Story FM, this is Sitting in the Dark. Each month we explore horror films around a common theme, and this week we go big or go home with big old monsters. I'm Kynan Diaz. As always, I'm joined by the towering intellect and joy of Chelsea Stardust. Hello, Chelsea.
Hello.
And our big bad voodoo daddy, Tommy Metz III.
Yep.
And I closed my thesaurus already, but we got the big Pete Wright.
What are we doing right now? I get stuck with big old. Everybody else got awesome stuff.
Large and in charge, Pete Wright.
Jolly green.
Jolly
and green? Oh, I'm hanging up.
Ho, ho, ho.
Right, so this week we're going to be taking a look at 3 giant monster movies from the current era. We could go back sometimes and do one rubber suit monsters from the old days, but this we have from South Korea, Bong Joon-ho's The Host from 2006, from Norway, André Øvredal's Trollhunter from 2010, and a much more recent Godzilla, Takashi Yamazaki's Godzilla Minus One. So before we get into the individual films and look at our axes to grind and what makes us fear the large, what do we think about the overall theme here with our 3 films? Anybody?
I was excited for it because I'm not traditionally a big monster fan. If there's giant monsters, I like them to be cosmic horror. Like I like them to not be quantifiable, more Lovecraftian. So as a result, I don't necessarily lean towards things like Godzilla. And so when a podcast tells me it's my job to do it, I'm excited because it's like I can re-engage with something that I had not engaged with.
I was thinking about your Lovecraftian horror love, especially with Godzilla in this version of it. Yeah, so very interesting. Pete?
A big fan. Big old fan of all of these movies in particular, and I think the idea of using these giant monsters as metaphor for things that are out of our control and see us as inconvenience and fodder for destruction is I think a useful metaphor for so many things that are happening in, gestures broadly, the world today. And so I found it really exciting, and I like that we didn't go with big guys in suits. Like it's nice to watch how these movies have evolved to make use of the technology. So it was really fun.
Right. I'm a little similar to Tommy in that I do avoid giant monster movies for a different reason. I mean, after 9/11, to get really serious with you, like I just didn't find that fun anymore. And I think that some of the more realistic Godzillas, so in the American movie that's just called Godzilla, not the Matthew Broderick one, but the one from the 2010s, Godzilla destroys both of my hometowns, Honolulu and Las Vegas.
Oh, seems personal.
It's hard not to feel targeted.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't find those fun. Maybe eventually I can go back and look at that and like detach yourself in the way that you're supposed to do that. But I do not seek them out. But so I did kind of force myself here to go and visit Godzilla again and see what that was like. But yeah, why don't we jump in? Speaking of metaphors, Pete, we can start with The Host, which has its sort of cryptic title that you just must mean something as we examine it from Bong Joon-ho. Was this new to anybody?
This is the one that I'd seen.
Yeah. Oh, the one that yeah, absolutely. I've seen this in the context of, seeing it when it first come out. I've also programmed it into one of my classes on international comedy, where we were looking at, movies that are labeled comedies in other countries, and then sometimes you bring them here and they are like revered as like super serious,
not funny, right?
Not funny. Yeah, like the Romanian film "The Death of Mr. Lazarescu," which is harrowing, and all the critics are like, "This is a really serious movie," and then in Romania is considered a knee slapper. So here we watched it, and having seen that for my second time in a theater with people who are trying to see it as comedy, The Host is a very funny movie. It's quite hysterical. Seeing it here in this context was a little bit different for me, maybe not with an audience. But so this is Bong Joon-ho's, I'd say, breakout movie in the West, at least. And this is regarding a monster that is made when an American pathologist forces his Korean assistant to drop some chemicals into their lab, and they go into the Han River, and it comes out a monster that becomes larger and larger. It starts snatching people from the riverside, including the young girl of a family that's head by the father, Song Kang-ho's character from Parasite. So true to Korean form, it becomes a revenge thriller where they're both trying to save the little girl, but also, eventually just kill it for the sake of, inflicting pain back at it. And so the monster becomes larger and larger. So do we have any axes to grind here with Bong Joon-ho's The Host?
The first time I saw it, and I had seen it so long ago that I might as well have just said that I saw it for the first time. Sometimes I have trouble following its swings of tone. That it is so comical. It's filled with dunces. And these lovable kind of Lebowskis just sort of shambling around, and then something really kind of upsetting happens. And I just have it's a little bit of a whiplash for me, which the fact that it never loses me, I never want to turn my back on it, means that it works, but it still takes a lot of getting used to. This kind of like sappy melodrama mixed with this really intense like medical sequence, which seems to come out of Jacob's Ladder. It's a little bit of it's a tough watch at times for that reason.
I would agree with that. I sort of felt, I think I saw this when it came out, but I haven't seen it since. So along with what Tommy said, I felt kind of the same. I was like, oh, it does feel like I'm sort of seeing this again for the first time. And I think it could benefit from, and again, this is just like of the time, because, it's like 10 years ago, but I think it could benefit from the Mist black and white treatment.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
I think the effects in some places are incredible, but then my partner joined me for watching the latter half of it, and there were some moments where he goes, "Woof, those don't quite hold up like they used to," and I almost feel like something like The Mist and even Godzilla Minus One, watching that in black and white, and there are moments where that really can elevate it. And I was like, oh, that could be that was kind of my biggest thing, is I'm like, these effects, but it's also of the time, so I can forgive it. But that was, if anything, I thought this would be a great one to see in black and white, to see how that would change.
There is something to the early parts of all of these films, these three in particular, that is in the the Jaws mode or the Frankenstein mode of like letting us imagine it, and then that works really effectively. And then when we all three of them seem at the end to be like, hey, let's focus on the special effects. And so I totally understand that.
I think for me, if I were to really put on my patriotism suit. The movie is such a caricature of American representation in Korea, and specifically American military. Like, it's you say that they were pouring stuff in the sink. It's the American military that was pouring stuff in the sink that went to think it. That's really, really important, because this movie hinges on how Korean culture felt about Americans, making the American scientist cross-eyed, drilling into Gangdu's brain is funny and the point if you're Korean. and so it's on this watch, it was the first time I felt like, oh, maybe he go too far on the lampooning of the American role in South Korea. They're a little bit cartoonish for me. I'm with you. The CGI hasn't aged great. I love the idea about seeing this in black and white, and that tonal shift. My goodness, that the smoke at the end, like that final sequence, is so glorious and not in the same movie. So, but overall, I do love this movie. So all of these are just really silly nitpicks anyway.
Yes. When I did watch it with students who hadn't seen it before, again, in telling them this is a comedy, which I think is framing that in that class, the biggest laughs that we had were at the funeral scenes, which is just these family members crying at their like tripping on their own, like Three Stooges in their own tears. And that didn't happen to me when I first saw it either, when I'm thinking of it as a monster movie. So the huge tonal shifts. I think part of it because it is so well made, and then also this last time watching it, part of it because now Bong has become a major, like one of the 10 most important filmmakers working today in the world, right? You kind of want to give it latitude and say, like, well, this must be something I'm not quite getting, right? Like, this is a master work, but I totally understand that how it's taking swings that we might not be following with it. Well, while we talk of the American military version of this first, because the movie seems to present this idea that we'll pick up in some of our other films of the first response to it is inadequate, right? Like the default response, the Korean response is non-existent, and then the American response is the one that's going to have to go and save it. And we start, adding all of this truly anti-American ideas, Agent Yellow, this this gas that we put on there, the false flag operations and all of that. None of it works. And so what do we think about that, of how that's operating in our giant monster movie context?
Well, I love it. Did you know this is based on a true story?
I know you were just saying that, like, oh, are they going too far? But yeah, most of this is based on a true story.
What do you mean?
Okay,
there was a monster?
No.
I feel like that would have made the headline.
In 2000, there was a civil servant who was contracted by the U.S. military, a guy named Albert McFarland, who ordered 24 gallons of formaldehyde to be disposed in the sink, and went into the Han River near Seoul. Like that's where this
where he
whole
got the
thing
idea?
starts. Yes, absolutely. It starts there, and he's like, "Look at what you hath wrought, U.S. military." Monster movie, which I think is low-key genius. Like, that's exactly what I want out of my metaphor in big monster movies. Like, it's based on, in fact, and I think that holds up.
Yeah. I also love that that's like the two American actors in this, that Scott Wilson, obviously, who a lot of people knew later on in Walking Dead, but was in Cold Blood and Ninth Configuration. And then the actor from Silence of the Lambs, that's the doctor, to see his like great cameo in this. And I hope that's
right. He's one of the butterfly scientists.
Yeah.
That's right.
I just was adding that. I was hoping someone would bring up that story because it's insane.
Yeah. It's so good because it's like it's the flesh of American institutional failure. Right, like I think that is such a great, a great connection to reality that just reminds you about what happens when that first domino gets pushed over. Eventually, you end up with this multi-tentacled swinging monster, uvula monster.
Yeah.
And like,
You feel a monster,
Yeah.
yes.
and like Kynan was, in his opening talking about what is it like dealing with this behemoth, behemoth, we'll never know, behemoth of that is large and powerful and a blunt object and doesn't care about you. There are so many scenes of human Americans treating Korean civilians like that, with like when the Agent Yellow is released and protesters start dying, and there's just that shot of very impassive officials, American officials, just sort of watching because these aren't human. Same with the whole lead up to the medical thing, that they know that there isn't a virus, the whole thing is fake, but they're still going to drill in people's heads because they want to lobotomize. I mean, there's no humanity there. So it's a nice parallel.
Director Bong himself even said this is Korea's first legitimately anti-American movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he made it. Like, that's the point.
Right. And so this is at a time when, America is posturing, perhaps justifiably against the Kim regime in South Korea. Like this is happening during the Iraq War. North Korea is being called the part of the axis of evil, if we remember back then, right? And there's very little talk about what does it mean for Korea there, right? Like in America, it's all Seoul is so close to the border, and the war would destroy Seoul so quickly. And then what do we do in America, as opposed to like, no, that's the whole problem. Is Seoul would go first and be destroyed. So, so we're right there, and. Yeah, a lot of countries have dealt with this and just sort of like accepted, crimes that happen around military bases, right? And just been like, well, that's the price we have to pay for
collateral damage.
safety. Yeah, exactly, the collateral damage. And here, we're comparing Korea as the host to the American virus, right? I mean, the country of South Korea is the host, and well, unless you had another idea, but
Did not.
The American virus that's there, and what are we willing to do to fight back against that, or do we just sit there and take it? Yeah.
Well, and that the only institution that survives in this movie after the host sort of falls and the American virus has its way is family. That the sweet institutional like Korean family, no matter how crazy it is, made up of a doofus and a child and an archer and an old man, like that survives all of the destruction. And the last shot in this movie of the food truck in the snow is extraordinary, sort of gentle period at the end of this whole story. And I think that's really, really great.
Yeah, it is a shockingly nice image, I think, after how mean-spirited the rest of the movie can be. And we get even some gallows humor about how the monster will kill people. The first chase around the river, and it seems like it's going for this person. We can predict it, but no, it's going to jump back and kill this other person. That elicits these chuckles. And then just the kind of general grossness once we're in the pit, which also I think elicits some kind of like, ooh, squeamy thing. To end on that, that snowy last shot of them and, being lit. And maybe there's the idea that there's monsters out there still in the dark, but we're kind of like, oh, it doesn't matter because we found each other. That's
hopeful.
even more shocking. Yeah, it's hopeful.
Yeah.
And in addition to family, it's also culture, because they are not family. They are adopted family. And so it's their culture, and they're eating a very cultural specific meal. I mean, that's a way to really show the difference between American, and that is their, all the bowls and the importance of all that. So I think it's both of those wrapped up together.
Yes. And maybe, I don't know. So maybe Bong doesn't feel the same way anymore. I mean, you compare this to the ending of Snowpiercer or Parasite.
Yeah.
It is not. Yeah. Yes. So what do we think of our giant monster design here? Which I think this is the hardest one for me to pin down, obviously, because we see
I
versions of it. Yeah.
love. This is probably my favorite of the monsters, and it does a really good job of showing the creature a lot without letting you fully understand or grasp it. It really reminded me of Cloverfield in that way. Cloverfield is constantly, you see so much of the monster, but it's always in spotlights. In this, it's not as much in spotlights as there's always people running in the foreground. And so it's, there's either structures or people, so it's just too hard to understand what it is, and I dig that. I really
But how
like.
cool is it that they expose it in full sunlight at the very beginning of the movie, right? It's running in the daylight. There is no mystique about it, and you still have trouble.
But it's still covered up, kind of.
It's
not,
like they are able to kind of play both cards, and I think that's really great. Apparently, Weta called it Steve Buscemi as a nickname, which I think is really like for
That's
the monster.
amazing.
It's a great compliment to the monster. Let's just say that it's a great compliment.
Right.
That's incredible.
Like the poster shot is like little tentacle things, and it doesn't really prepare you for when you actually see it. And it's not a I don't know, it's not a tentacle monster, I suppose, even though it has tentacles. It's some other fishy land creature thing. That can kind of just be anything you need it to be to scare the crap out of you.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. I also love that it's sort of it's obviously aquatic, but also can walk on land. So it's sort of this odd commentary on evolution too.
Right.
That it's in the daylight. They're not shying away from that, which is very brave and bold. It's also like very vaginal, which I'm into. So like all of those things, multiple mouths and teeth, and also you're looking at it and the mechanics of it. It's like, wait, are there legs? Are there arms? But the arms are like not, they're fins, but are they? Like it's
and the
design
tail
is insane.
able to do everything. Yeah.
I think its mouth has like treadmill teeth. Like they're constantly rolling
like
in on themselves.
too.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's a great mashup.
But in that respect, it is. I think it's. I don't know. It may be my favorite monster only in the sense that it is the hardest to pin down. It's the greatest mystery. I'm not watching for anything that I know. It's not like I'm watching for how do they do the fins on Godzilla, because I know the fins on Godzilla. Right. I'm looking at a monster saying, my brain cannot understand this silly thing. I can't figure it out. That's a neat experience.
Yeah, I'm going to butcher the Korean, but it's something like Gwoemul, Gwoemul, which is what they call it online in fandoms. But in Korean, it just means monster. So as if like we couldn't give it a name. So it's not a graboid or a xenomorph or something like that. Like it is just monster. Look at it.
A running orifice.
Yeah. Running orifice. Right. It's kind of even backwards. So you might think that the tentacle or arms, it turns out to be this prehensile tail. And its face certainly is butt-like, or vaginal. Okay, let's say vaginal.
I do love how it moves. It's just the way it swings, the sort of pendulosity of it. That's why it will always be uvula to me. I just think it looks so cool. And
I love that song.
Yeah, that's great.
It has a very original feel to it. I think that's what I'm trying to celebrate.
Yeah, so this one is a little bit different than like Godzilla, which we're doing this a little bit out of order in that respect. Like clearly Bong and his filmmakers would know Godzilla, and they're trying to be in conversation with that of using the genre and also working against the genre. But one thing that this movie does that Godzilla doesn't do is that we find its little house, its little lair, and that lair is so interesting. Because we get the idea that this is a mutant. It is improvising its lair, and then decides to do that in this weird concrete man-made thing. And so it's like making us question, like, well, geez, what would this be like if it were quote unquote in nature? But it wouldn't be in nature. It doesn't exist in nature. What do we think about its living or as our ideas about its life cycle or where it hangs out, I guess?
That is an interesting point, that it's not like it made a real cave for itself.
Yeah.
And there's not itself reflected on the walls like an alien, like you said, xenomorph. That it's a human creation. So it only just fits in a human, but also kind of like a lot of this movie is also about economic inequality. And it's like, because it is almost a bastard of creation, it lives in the sewers of the sewers, which is kind of the forgotten areas. And that's the same place where those two brothers are found scavenging. It's because they've been left behind by society as a whole. And so I guess that all does really track well in a way that I didn't think of until just now. And I'm going to take credit for what you said.
It is a circle of life kind of a thing for this movie. It was born in a lab in the sort of austerity of a lab scenario, and it ends up in sort of, I mean, they say sewers are really the labs of infrastructure. So so that makes total sense that they would end there. But also a very cool sewer. Like this aqueduct area is really neat and so much fun, clearly to film there, to capture like all these angles. It felt like brutalist, it was really neat to watch them capture just the size of this human creation melded with the size of this beast that is also a human creation. Very cool.
Great. Yeah. And then I just need to give some shout out to, two of my favorite moments, which are about the female protagonists who, have these kind of, okay, we're going to be badass things here. And it just works differently than our male protagonists who were never really convinced any of their plans are going to work, and they kind of slip on themselves. But when Bayaduna, as the Archer sister, has her little moment, it is so cool, even though eventually, ultimately we see that doesn't work. It's just such a cool, like, framed moment, and it's like this cheerful moment, or cheering rather. And then when the daughter is trying to hatch her plan to get out of there, because you see this like layer and you're like, oh, there's literally no way to get out of there, and she sort of figures that out, and then her heroism and eventually sacrificing herself for the young boy is really I think surprisingly.
Yeah, the archery had to pay off. It had to pay off.
You had to pay off.
Like, for the love of God, please let it pay off. And they just they wait so long. Because when they're setting it up,
right.
You're like, this has to come back around. And finally, when it comes through. Also, that talk about like when we were talking about tone, you're on this journey with this father trying to rescue his daughter, and she doesn't, spoiler alert, make it. Brutal.
Right.
So horrible. So horrible. Still recovering.
Yeah, that's like the motivating single functioning emotional like pull in the movie is his love for his daughter, and that it is unrequited, is crushing. But at the same time, like we spend 2 hours with this chaotic, messy, imperfect kind of found family, and then that final moment where the arrow and the Molotov cocktail and Gangdu's pole, like they all work together. It's a really satisfying genre beat that they actually are able to come together, and it's so simple and predictable, and yet I am here for it. I think it just really plays.
It's neat that everyone gets to play a part, because when he is about to throw the Molotov cocktail and drops it, I was like, oh, give me a break. But then it lets everything build, and it's perfect. I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way once you see that. But for a second, I was like, I remember that one guy asking the quote, "Is all of your family so dumb all of the time?" That was one of my favorite lines of the movie, because I was like, are they? But they end up coming through.
It might be.
Speaking of upsetting things, boy, did this bring back some COVID memories.
Oh yeah.
It's uncomfortably ahead of its time with some of the masks, with some of the talking about what's real, what's not. I mean, all of that stuff takes on a real new meaning.
Right. And then it still ends with like this misinformation idea from the news.
Right.
Like nothing really happened. Don't worry about it. Well, geez. All right. Well, moving on to some nicer climes. We have from Norway now, Trollhunter by André Øvredal, which is a found footage movie with 4 or 5 title cards at the beginning explaining itself to you. But it turned out that this is over 280 hours of footage that some students from a university, Thomas, Johanna, and Kalle, have made, initially investigating an illegal bear poacher, or just some kind of gun nut who just hates bears. He doesn't seem to do anything with them. But it
leaves
turns
them there.
out he just leaves them there. Yeah, I know that's poaching exactly. Yeah. What turns out that is uncovering a government conspiracy to hide the existence of the trolls, which are part of Nordic folklore and culture. So they follow Hans, who is a government employed troll hunter, as he takes them into the woods to teach them about troll science, and then also to take out some of the ones that have increasingly been moving past their normal bounds and into the human world. So was this new to anybody, Trollhunter?
100%.
I had not seen it either. I had friends who saw it at Sundance, and I wish I could be in that initial audience of people who didn't really know what to expect there. So, all right, before we get into the film, any axes to grind about Trollhunter?
Yes.
I love found footage.
Pete says yes.
Oh, sorry, Pete.
No, go ahead,
Mine is
Tom,
really,
please.
mine is
Set
really
me up.
pithy. Mine is really pithy. I love found footage films, but they all are sponsored by Dramamine. And there were times when I was like, okay, I can't imagine watching it in your weird Clockwork Orange headset because I had to look away from my television from across the room and like talk to my dog at times because there was. Remember that one part where they're running? That
where they're
being
hiding,
said,
where they're
right,
hiding nuts.
That being said, I want to get out in front and just say I fell deeply in love with this movie.
Okay,
I thought it was
great.
such an incredible, fun experience, a mix of Blair Witch and Men in Black, which was really cool. Okay, Pete, I'm sorry, I don't mean to step on you.
No, that was going to be largely my axe. It feels like that the shaky cam, you know, was pretty tired by like 2010 standards.
Yep,
you know,
sure.
I was done with Blair Witch style of found footage the moment Blair Witch ended. Like I was just I was done with it, and it's been done so many times. I actually also really like found footage, and I just think there are ways to do it without aggressively, you know, making your audience sick, not for the right reasons. If I'm going to be sick in a horror movie, I know it's going to get me there, and I don't want it to be this. I also think that the student characters are, you know, they're a little thin, and I think this movie doesn't handle the question, why are they still filming well enough, right? Like there are just sequences that I think I find myself that take me out of the movie because I wonder, what are they doing? And we can talk about those moments, but anyway. That's mine.
Yeah, I saw. So, I mean, thinking about when I saw this movie, I was at Blumhouse, and obviously this is like coming like 3 years after Paranormal Activity. So, the found footage is very like all over the place at this time. I actually rewatching it, and a lovely friend gave me a brand new 75-inch TV that I was able to watch all of these movies on. So, I actually, as someone who gets motion sick pretty easily I can't do like 4D. I can't do things like at Disney and stuff that are just like a screen. I can't do those kind of rides or anything. I actually had no issue with that, oddly enough.
Great.
I didn't actually think about it until you mentioned it. And I realized, oh yeah, this movie did not have that. I didn't have to look away. Like sometimes like Blair Witch is kind of intense for some people. If you see that in the theater, it's pretty intense. I saw this as like maybe it was like looking for distribution. I saw it as like a screener copy of it. And I frankly like didn't really remember seeing it because I had watched so many things working at Blumhouse. But this is André's second movie, and I was in love with Autopsy of Jane Doe. So, and like Scary Stories Tell in the Dark, like those are his movies after this one. And this is obviously the movie people most know of when he first like came on the scene. I will say like it took a while for me to figure out who the kids' names were. Like they were saying Thomas and Joanna all the time, but I'm like, who's filming? Whereas in Blair Witch, you know who they are because they say their names constantly.
Right.
I think like this is real. I think this movie is sort of magical, and I really loved actually paying attention to it while watching it, as opposed to being distracted. I'm sure when the first time I saw it, but super minor. But the found footage movies, I think, for the most part, if you can get it to a tight 90, like Paranormal, I think is like 86 minutes or something. I felt like it got a little long because we're getting into, I mean, it's the shortest of these movies. It's getting into hour 43-minute movie. You can trim. There's stuff that could get trimmed, but I love the lore. I love Hans. I'm so here for Hans. But that, if anything, and it seems like every movie these days is 2.5 hours long. So that's super particular. But there were times where I'm like, okay, we got it. Let's keep it moving.
Yeah.
But very super minor. I too love this movie. It was such a joy rewatching it. And there's this like magic to it that I was into, but that's not an axe to grind. I already said my axe to grind. Okay, let's get back on track.
Yeah. All of my axes are, the things that I think I'm going to say every time we watch a found footage movie, of just like the scenes that really work make you just notice the scenes that don't work. So like just the stuff around Hans the Trollhunter's cabin or his RV sort of situation, or like going to the diner and like watching him eat his eggs, like that feels so real. And so then when you have any kind of other issue where it's like, oh, why would they be filming that? Why are we keeping these mistakes in there, right? That just pulls you out. Exactly. So that's just sort of the genre. They will have, like, okay, the camera tips over. That's great. That would happen if you were filming it. But now you're saying you've edited this into a movie. Why do you keep that shot in there? Except that, that's just maddening stuff that, but that's just inherent to the genre. I think everything
Right.
except for Blair Witch, they don't really answer that question. Right. All right. So yes, Trollhunter. I am not someone who really knows the lore of the troll, because as an American who is dumb, uncultured American, I think of trolls as the little troll dolls and their tiny little friends.
None of these had pink tall hair.
No pink hair, no gems in their bellies.
Yeah, where's the gems?
Yeah, and aren't they supposed to give Elsa and Anna's parents like magic or something like that? But so any of you know the troll mythos? It seems to be well researched and that these people know what they're doing, and I believe that in this movie, even without knowing the mythos.
I just know from fairy
all I know
tales.
was the original Norwegian children's game, Heathen Christian Muslim, which I think they architected very well in this movie. I'm sorry.
I like the bridge troll, like under the bridge, like that stuff you hear when you're a kid.
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
Under the bridge, and like maybe like a riddle
yes,
here and there, like you need a riddle to cross the bridge, something like that.
totally,
Yeah.
or like a jump rope rhyme. Like that's very basic, but I love how much I learned watching this movie.
Yes. The only one that I was really familiar with was the Jotun, which are the giant versions of them, because I've just seen them in other games and stuff like that. But yeah, I really like that we have this kind of taxonomy of the different trolls. And I like that even, our characters who are Norwegian and they kind of have an idea of the lore, that they're really good audience surrogates in that respect. And they're like, okay, maybe I can believe in trolls. I need you to describe to me what any of the rest of this is. And he's like, oh, and he seems so bored. Hans is like, oh, you people, like there's 3 different types of trolls, and one of them, they develop heads. They just look like heads, just vestigial little bumps, and they're not real heads.
Decoy heads.
Decoy heads. There's only one eye. Yeah, all of that's so fascinating, and I like that they are so blasé with it. I think that really helps us a lot.
His calmness and it lets you laugh with the movie, but it also is such wonderful world building. And it made me feel like, I wonder if they were just there and they were like, oh yeah, those electric fences, those could be like, or the electricity lines. Like, what if we just say those are electric fences? And just because he's so over it, he's so knows all it's almost like they could just make things up as they went along. And it was thrilling. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, this actor, Otto Jespersen, who I don't know, but in Norway, apparently he is a famous comedian. So I don't know how that would be for Norwegians, like if you like recognize Galifianakis doing this or whatever, right? But for us who don't know him, he feels real. This performance is by far the most grounded thing in the movie. And anytime we're on him talking or wielding his weapons, you like really believe this is found footage.
I think he's like he'd be a Steve Carell comparison, right?
Yeah,
like first time you see
mhm.
Carell in something serious after The Daily Show,
Mhm.
that I
Adam
would
Sandler.
understand.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
right. Adam Sandler and the Cobbler, or what's his name? Man,
The Cobbler and what's his name?
No, what was the movie, the Safdie brothers movie that he did?
Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems, yeah.
That also bothered you all with your shaky cams, I'm sure.
Right. For sure.
Yeah, I like that the movie takes its time and doesn't give us like jump scares of trolls immediately. So what do we think of the first troll encounter that we see, in the woods there? Where we actually see the troll, because we have moments where we go in there and Hans yells, troll, troll, and they get out, but we actually will see the three-headed troll come out of the trees. And I wonder what you were thinking at that initial blush of them.
Tommy in the front there.
I went, oh no. Because they were monstrous, but they also looked kind of funny and they looked very trollish. And I was like, oh, I need to do kind of in a very different way than the host. I was like, oh, I need to change the way that I'm watching this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to immediately, because I'm loving the world building, so I need to immediately meet it. It's not meeting me where I thought we were going. So I'm going to run to it and be like, these are the trolls. And there was just this shift. And then I was like, okay, I get it. It's not what I was thinking, and I love it. Like, you're not making a Kraken, you're just making this weird things, but monstrous. And then when that one scene, when you're looking around in that green infrared in the forest, and it's like forest. Oh no, that's a leg. And you see him runs down. I was like, okay, I see now what we're doing. And they can be everywhere, and they're everything. And so as soon as I got over that, my oh no moment, I was really happy with it.
Very similar, but it also reminded me, oh, we're having fun. We're having fun here. I'm a big fan of Brian Froud's artwork, and it very much looks like his. There's like a whimsy to it, I think. And whether or not that was used as reference, but a lot of them look like his work. But yes, I thought it was very bold to show it kind of early in the movie. We're not hiding what this is, because we're learning there's all these different types. And I loved that. Like, give me a rich world, give me that mythology. I want it, because a lot of times they don't give you that. I thought it was bold, but also, yes, we're having fun, embracing the fun. Just like Tommy said, we're going to meet you here. Yes.
Right, because it's a full body shot, so we don't see a hand or something, or a tooth or an eye or anything. We just see, that's a full shot of this.
And it has three heads.
And I think at one point its nose waggles a little bit. That was my oh no. I was like, oh really? And yet, like we do get, I think we get four major types of trolls. We get the initial troll, three-headed troll. We get the bridge troll, which I think is where I come around to it. When that bridge troll picks him up and puts him in his mouth and throws him against the railing, I was like, he just killed our protagonist.
Right.
That is bold. Right. Like, and then he still gets up and goes down to get the blood before he explodes the troll. That told me that, okay, what they want to do is take something frivolous and make it gruesome, and you are in for that kind of a ride. And they had me. I think that the part that brings the oh no back is in the cave troll situation, where the troll sits down and farts.
And they're farting.
Yeah. I did come back a little bit of an oh no. It's like, you just found the easiest one. And you took that one rather than maybe just spend a few more minutes with it. What else could you do?
Sure.
But
yeah, I had the similar response when you first see them, like, oh, they're goofier than you would think. But then they're also pretty immediately scary again. And so it's really interesting how the movie's able to have it, I guess, three ways. Like, oh, this is goofy, this is funny, this is safe. Oh, these are cute. These are kind of like Bambi-ish versions of trolls. They're a little bit anthropomorphic. They have their little eyes, and we see them with their foibles, but then also we are terrified of them. So somehow it's able to do all three of those in a really, really cool way. And yeah, I think it's most apparent in the cave trolls, which they get closest to, and like, oh, they have their little Fraggle area here, and they're just tired after a day of eating the blood of a Christian man, and they just sit down there in the living room like, oh, that's really cute, but like a bear or like a tiger or something, like you cannot be around them. So the movie ends up using this device to explain why we do need to kill these things, it's because they have rabies. And what do you think of that reveal that it is that they all have rabies, so that's why they're leaving the bounds of their forest and attacking people?
It's in the last 10 minutes of the movie they reveal
Right.
that.
Yeah.
And that's something, because obviously Thomas is feeling sick, something. I think she tries to offer him a glass of water. He's like, no.
No, I'm
Yeah.
phobic of hydro. Yes, I'm hydrophobic.
Obviously, when they were talking about we meet the vet, we know something's wrong. And I definitely didn't see the rabies aspect coming. But they literally tell you in the last
Mhm.
I was like, it's fine.
I really love it that it's a veterinarian who's in charge of the science with the trolls. That's not, I don't know that I would have gone there if I were making this movie, that it would be probably some scientific industrial complex that is in charge of the TSS, the trolls. But that it's this veterinarian who they can only meet late at night, I think is just legitimately, I hope it was funny to a native crowd, because I found it hysterical. I thought it was really, really great.
Yeah, I think the idea that it's rabies is so interesting, because instead of coming up with, oh no, they've got trolls disease or some made up, magical curse or something, it comes back to this idea of what people who live near the wilderness do have to deal with, of real diseases that you get from real animals. So the movie doesn't beat us over the head with it like the host does. The host does it in a great way, but this movie doesn't want to do that, of climate change or encroachment or any of those things. But I think that just helps it make a lot of sense and brings it to, again, this sense of realism, even with these goofy ass sort of monsters. Tommy?
I really thought that it was the only thing that took me back is I had already written in my head that it was going to be encroachment, that when humans move in to the wilderness, they end up in the suburbs. Animals end up in the suburbs attacking, that's why lions are on, not lions, cougars and stuff, and coyotes and stuff are taking pets, is because
Right.
they can't live the way that they're normally. And so because I had all that already locked and loaded, and then they were rabies, I was like, or that. That's fine.
I think it's also, even though whether or not this was an influence or not, but it feels to me like it's harkening back to War of the Worlds, where it's, even though these are of this world, that a germ, something like that can affect these, they get infected by something that animals carry because they're preying on animals, and then how it's affecting them. And then Hans says they all have it, apparently. And that's also what's going to probably eventually kill them if he's not already taking care of them, because it just keeps spreading. And it's, I feel like, though, because he says all of them have it, we don't really know how they behave if they don't have it. Is that affecting their behavior? Is this how they always act? Aside from the fact that they're sort of more prevalent. And something I loved about the process of how they're killed is that when they turn to stone, it's like they were never there. It's just there's no body left behind. That's again, I was talking about the magic of this movie, that you would even never know they existed, because there's no, after they turn to stone and fall apart, it's like they never existed. It's so wild to me. I love that.
Who wants some gravel? Yeah.
Who wants some gravel? Yeah. That was a great line.
Yeah, and they're able to bridge that pretty well. So there's they're interviewing scientists or veterinarians and that kind of thing, and she says okay, the sunlight is going to make them turn to stone, and sometimes it makes them explode but that's just their blood vessels, So yes, it feels magical, but I like that it can do both of those things. It has the feeling of magic, but there's oh, that's an interesting way to justify these things from our nightmares. Yeah,
and to be able to look around your world and be like, what if it wasn't something that broke that bridge because we built it wrong, that a troll bumped his head on it. That great part, which is very, very Men in Black, of looking through newspapers, but
So
then
good.
looking past the boring civil engineering of it and be like, what if a troll did that? Or why are these rocks all over the place? Because they're so dumb, they just throw rocks at each other. It's really
So
fun.
good.
You could just walk around and be like, I wonder what caused that pothole. Yeah, it's probably some sort of a troll. It's
probably. Yeah.
The just sort of act of hiding this by placing a dead bear and then getting the stilt with the bare feet to stamp bear footprints. One of the funniest moments in this movie is when they realize that the guy had the left and right bare footprints backwards. Right. And so they realized the bear was walking with his feet crossed. It's just, I was dying. I thought that was really funny.
Right. And Thomas, the main kid, is like, "Oh, that would be strange. This bear," and he's like trying to poke fun at that Finn, the bureaucrat who's in charge of the Troll Security Service, and like in a way that no one else can notice. I mean, that stuff is so incredibly funny with the dead bears, and like we have to import them from Poland because we're running out of them here, and yeah. And I'm glad that we have all those moments. They don't take away from the tone of the movie in any way. That still is genuinely frightening, or at least chaotic.
So the end of this movie, there's the clip of the prime minister talking. That's the actual prime minister, right? Jens Stoltenberg, from his press conference, where it was just recut enough to make it look like he's admitting trolls exist. And I think that is magical.
It's really well done.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, really well done. Yeah, but apparently, like, so in Norway, there's enough the troll culture, the troll, lore, mythology is so built in that there are places called Troll Field. So apparently, that's what he's talking about. Is the actual place is Troll Field, so they don't have to edit it very much.
Yeah,
apparently.
wow. It's enough.
Right. Now, moving on to the granddaddy of a lot of this genre, who is Gojira. So we have Godzilla Minus One by Takashi Yamazaki. So this is Toho's first Godzilla movie in almost a decade because of the American versions of Godzilla that were under the rights to Legendary. So there is a gap, even though there are 37 Godzilla movies to date. There is a big gap of Japanese Godzilla movies between 2016 Shin Godzilla and this movie here. So in many ways, they saw it as an opportunity to reboot, and I think pretty daringly, like, basically remake the original Godzilla movie. And so this involves a little bit earlier of a timeline than the first Godzilla movie from 1954. This is set at the tail end of World War II, featuring our character Koichi Shikishima, who is a kamikaze pilot who has chickened out and not gone to his death in his plane, and lands on the mythical Oda Island from the original film and discovers Godzilla there. And he is unable to kill Godzilla, and so faces a lot of guilt, both with his kamikaze cowardice and also the idea that he didn't fire on Godzilla when it was small. And now that it is turbocharged due to American, again, intervention with the Bikini Atoll nuclear tests, now it is potentially unstoppable. And it has its eyes set on Tokyo, which it has marked as part of its territory.
You guys, let me just say, what would it be like if we as Americans really wanted to make giant radioactive monsters? Like, if we really put our minds to it, because we're doing a bang-up job accidentally creating monsters. But if we really put all of
they'd
our
all
weight...
get like hooked on junk food and
it would really mess this up. Yeah, they'd all be Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just have super high blood pressure. You're like,
so this was new for me, and I think some of you saw it for the first time as Godzilla Minus Color here for ours. So yeah, anybody hadn't seen Godzilla Minus One yet?
Me?
Oh, Tommy too. Great.
Yeah.
Really avoiding this genre. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we did watch the Godzilla Minus Color version. So
correct.
Do we have any axes to grind with Godzilla Minus One?
I have one, and it's me, because I was wrong in the last part of the movie. I was summarily corrected in the community and Discord, because they did actually release the color one first, and then they released it without color after. I said it the other way around, and I apologize for that. And for those of you who hated the black and white, I'm sorry. That's on me.
I'm my own axe to grind also, like Pete just was. Godzilla Minus One. What'd that mean? I don't understand. I don't understand what the title means.
Well, the sequel
and
is...
as you know, I don't like to look things up. I like to try to come up with my own, or just ask you guys. What does that mean, Godzilla Minus One?
Yeah, the sequel is Godzilla Minus Zero, which they've planned. So I don't know. It feels to me like a T-1 situation. We're counting
going back
down.
in time.
Yeah.
Oh, Godzilla
We're counting down to
minus
0, but I
one.
don't know if I've seen a good answer for it anywhere.
Huh. Okay, so maybe it's just sort of a slightly different translation of like Godzilla minus one, because that's just not how we say things.
Well, no, in the I don't speak Japanese fluently, but in the Japanese, it is spelled out in American or English language as -1.
Okay.
So
All
it's
right.
Gojira -1.
Got it. Okay. My only axe to grind is like with a lot of some of these kind of movies, it gets a little melodramatic at times, but I think maybe once I know that, it's part of its charm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Chelsea.
I fucking love this movie.
Mhm.
I fucking love it so much. One of my favorite films of 2023. I saw it in the theater. I have no axes to grind. Probably because I found it to be. I'm a latecomer to Godzilla in the sense that like the only thing I ever saw as a kid that was Godzilla related was Godzilla versus Bambi, and
No, that might be the best Godzilla
it's
movie,
so good.
actually.
But it wasn't until later on that I started watching. Later on, as in like between like in the last 15 years that I really started diving into Godzilla movies. And I love this. I'm a big Mothra fan. Mothra is like my gal. But seeing this in the theater, not an axe to grind at all. I'm not executing the brief, but it was the sound design was so scary that I was like in tears in the opening because I was so genuinely terrified. And the design, the boot up of Godzilla, like everything about this, I like sympathize with Godzilla, which is real fucked up. But like, there's so many things I just loved about this movie. I loved obviously we're seeing the old Toho logos at the beginning, which is so cool. And seeing the protagonist really paying it, like most of these movies are about the monster, which this is, but really getting you invested in this sort of chosen family, kind of. And being on that journey with them just makes everything so satisfying at the end, which a lot of movies just don't do that. These monster movies are so focused on the monsters that takes a back seat. And this just did something very different, which is what they were trying to do, obviously rebooting this. I just love it. I will continue to think about if I have an axe to grind, but I do not.
That's all right. We don't need axes. Yeah, but the only axe that I have is, as good as the sound design is here, I don't quite understand why they have entirely gone away from the original Godzilla roar, which I don't think is actually anywhere in the movie. Which is, it's a made up unsettling thing. They used it. They put a violin into an electrosphere or something, to make the original one, and they rubbed a rubber glove over it and just stuff that you can't actually create. So that's my favorite part of the Godzilla franchise, because it just does something to your nerves.
Yeah.
It just takes control of your body. So they were doing that here with the sound design, which is excellent. But I was like, okay, maybe the last thing we're going to hear is Godzilla do that, but it doesn't do that. But yeah, I think that this is. I was going to say it's at least as good as the original Godzilla, and so that might be the best one. But until you mentioned Bambi Meets Godzilla, which is the best Godzilla movie. Yeah, it is at least as good as the original. I have to sort of remind myself when I'm watching another Godzilla movie that they have entirely different aims from the original 1954 Ishiro Honda movie, which is a very serious movie about nuclear war and destruction, and it's very existential. And so the rubber suit ones after that, Godzilla versus whoever, you just have to separate and go, like, no, these are just going to be fun. And that's fine, etc. And I don't know if I've seen an American Godzilla that really, holds up to any of that. But yeah, this is at least as good. It takes it very seriously. The melodrama is overwhelmingly emotional. I was not prepared for that I would actually care about these characters, because as good as the first movie is, there are no characters except for Dr. Serizawa, who is the guy who invents the oxygen machine and then considers killing himself in order to do that. I don't know anything about the other characters. I've seen that movie like 8 times, right? But this one, like, these are real characters, and I was not prepared for that.
I'm right with you. I love this movie. I think I'm definitely on Team Chelsea. That I can't think of an axe to grind. Like all the things that I think about, what would I sharpen as an axe? the domestic passages in the middle kind of sag. Well, that's why I love those parts. Like,
Right.
that's why the other parts matter, because as you say, I get to know it. Like, I guess, the ending kind of hedges its bets. Oh, the reconstituting cells of Godzilla.
Uh-huh.
That's the point of Godzilla. It is unstoppable,
Yeah.
Peter, you tool. So I just can't really come up with a viable axe to grind. But I do have one thing that I have found, which is confirmation from Yamazaki, who says that the title Godzilla Minus One refers to the idea that Japan, already reduced to zero by the devastation of World War II, is then pushed even further below zero to -1 by the arrival of Godzilla. It's at its most vulnerable point in history and is then pushed further by another catastrophic blow that drives it even deeper into despair and destruction. That's the director, Takashi Yamazaki.
Yes, I remember there was a definition of that, but I could not remember what it was.
Yeah, I couldn't remember that.
And yes, that is Now I'm remembering hearing that after you've read it.
Huh. Okay.
May I bring up something embarrassing? So when I watched Godzilla Minus One, this is now officially the second movie that I have screamed aloud at. I didn't think that was going to happen again. And so the first was the last jump scare in Carrie, which I felt very embarrassed about, because it's kind of, once you know it's there, you're like, of course, that's what that happened. But this one was in the introduction to Godzilla, because I think I'm so attuned to the idea that we're going to wade into, as I said, to like see, oh, here's a footnail of Godzilla, here's a scale of his that's left behind, and instead we have this chaotic sequence where the mechanic and his crew turn and look, and they're looking, and the camera swings across the landscape, passes Godzilla because it doesn't know what a Godzilla is, goes back, and Godzilla roars, and I screamed aloud in my own house.
Yes.
To see someone who I've seen dozens of Godzilla movies.
That's outstanding.
Love it.
Is that
So
what you screamed? Hey, it's Godzilla!
It's Godzilla.
I screamed, Jesus Christ, in my own house, because it has all the trappings of like, oh, what are these weird little things here, and oh, we hear this sound, and it's a really smart way of doing it. I think, for people who have built up expectations around what a Godzilla movie is, they are starting from scratch. So yeah, what do we make of the introduction to Godzilla here on this Odo Island?
I loved it too, and I liked how it showed you a lot, but in a way that made it seem very realistic. And especially my favorite Godzilla is a swimming Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
That Godzilla, especially in black and white, because I haven't seen the color, I felt like, unlike the host, I can reach out and touch that Godzilla,
Yep.
that spiky monster. Not as much for me when he's walking around in the city, because then it's just a little too humanoid for me. But yeah, in the night scene and then during the day in the water, I thought it was extraordinarily well done.
When he's chasing the boat, that boat,
Oh, yeah.
that is extraordinary. And I have to say, we haven't commented on it specifically, but in the black and white too, I think the black and white enhances the scale as he mutates and grows. It makes it even more sort of physical, right? More visceral. I thought that was amazing.
I went back and skimmed through the color version. I don't really like rewatching movies ad nauseum. But so you're missing some of the. I'm not sure. I'm of two minds, because I do like this weird ethereal blueness to it that is its heat source is blue that I see in the color version. But I think you're right. In the black and white, it does feel more real. I hate saying it, but it does feel more like you're looking at every single ridge of it and like of its spines. So there is something there.
Why is that? Have we ever talked about what is black and white bleeding out that makes, like, the Mist, the effects look so much like 200% better with the monster stuff? It's like, is it robbing it of like some sort of CGI sheen?
I also think it's your focus, like you're looking at it as a whole, as opposed to, oh, it's this color that's happening. I don't know. That's a great question.
I think there is something that puts every element in the frame on an even playing field when it's in black and white, right? And when it's in color, I notice the differences in color before I notice the differences in shape.
Right.
And when I just have to look at the differences in shape, it's just that Godzilla face and that boat are the same. They're the same to my brain, and they just get to live together in the frame. And I think in color, I lose that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our cinematography teacher here at UNLV Film talks about color, as part of the variables of light. It's the one that the audience notices the most, so it's really the only one that you have to deal with in terms of continuity from shot to shot. He's like, an audience will notice if it's a certain shade of green in this shot and a certain shade of green in the next shot. They won't notice that necessarily with the quality of the light or even the direction of the light or any of those things. So there's something about color that kind of hijacks our brain a little bit and takes over. Yeah. But in this Odo, what I like about the Odo Island sequence at the very beginning is that we are with our character Koichi, and he's totally frozen by this. He's already we already have this really interesting but efficient way of telling his story that he was a kamikaze pilot and he's being called out and being a coward, etc. But then we see him in action, and this is when he looks the smallest, because we have these shots of him, but they're actually looking up at Godzilla, and he's totally dwarfed by that. And that's not even his final form, it turns out. And it's what could be even scarier than that? So there's a scale to it, and a real he could touch Godzilla there. That's so horrifying. That for whatever reason doesn't really even prepare us for later when he's literally even smaller than that. But we don't have as many shots later on where he's in the frame and we see the actual scale to him as we do in Odo Island. Yeah.
Do you know what I want to add to that, Kynan? Because I think you're absolutely right. The other thing I think that is so important about at least my watch of this movie on this time around was the fact that this is the Godzilla movie that focuses so much on the human story, and that Godzilla is just present in it, right? If I go back to all the other Godzilla movies, it's focusing on Godzilla's story, and one brilliant scientist, is a tool to fix it. But this one, Godzilla is just another feature of the war, and we're really talking about a soldier's story coming to terms with the fact that he was unable to complete his mission, and he has dishonored himself forever by coming home as a kamikaze pilot. And I thought that was just really sad, deeply sad. So the movie's footing from that opening sequence is one of sadness and melancholy. I am positioned to just watch this guy get beaten up over the course of the movie, and he does every single, he does for 2/3 of the movie. He's just beaten up one way or another. I think that's one of the great gifts of the structure of the film.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in Japanese cinema, but I try to be. I want to be. And, there's not a whole lot of movies that I've seen, or at least movies that have come to America, where the Japanese have a reckoning about their role in World War II. Oftentimes it's really just elided, and we just see the suffering caused by the Americans, which is legitimate. But, Grave of the Fireflies is we're victims and all of this, etc. But this one's super interesting. And I wasn't really sure what the movie's going to do or how it would be. If at the beginning he's this cowardly kamikaze, I'm so does that mean at the end he's going to hey, kamikaze are good, suicide bombings are good, etc. And they actually do something much more complicated and interesting than that about how do you reckon with that and try to get over your cowardice but not be a kamikaze, which by modern Japanese standards is cowardly, to use your plane like that. And the middle scenes, these domestic scenes, just cut those out. There's just no Godzilla in them. They're actually really, really interesting. His neighbor, who is presumably the mother of his childhood friends, slaps him and says, you're a coward. This is why my children died, is because you didn't kill yourself in the war. And then that relationship, growing into one of hey, violence is not the answer, but let's still kill Godzilla. Right? Complicated stuff that I wasn't expecting in a giant monster movie.
Yeah, I've never really, other than maybe Empire of the Sun, I don't remember a movie really dealing a lot with kamikaze culture. That's a gross way to use that phrase, but that idea, I've read a lot about it in books, and that there were even kamikazes that they would drive torpedoes there would be a person inside a torpedo that would drive it into a boat, which I cannot think of anything more horrifying. And
Yeah,
that they would keep them.
you can go there in Pearl Harbor. You can go into one if you ever visit the Pearl Harbor Memorial, and you could see what it's like. Yeah,
I don't remember what book it was, but they would keep them when they were getting ready to go. They would keep them at a certain level of drunk. That they would keep feeding them liquor to keep them a little bit not in reality of what they were doing. So I thought that was fascinating. And then also, yeah, Pete, you saying that Godzilla is just part of this war. He becomes, this is probably the most cliched, obvious thing to say, but he becomes the physical embodiment of war when he raises Ginza. Ginza is the one place that survived World War II unintact. His heat ray makes a nuclear bomb go off, and he's just this big, unthinking, unwielding, not noticing what he's doing. He's just raising a city. And then we get the real human level of it when we see her. My apologies, I don't remember her name. We think fly away to her death. I mean, yeah, it's incredibly affecting.
It is a funny thing when you talk about the historical context, though, especially as a Japanese film. Like it is a film about post-war guilt that is very careful about which guilt it examines, right? Like it doesn't address any of the feelings against Japanese imperial aggression as it means to survive, to be a survivor of an military industrial complex that did execute that aggression. I remember when I was living in Korea, I had this an incredible dinner with some very old folks and some grandparents, and they were talking about how grateful they were that America dropped the bomb on Japan. Why? Because right then, Japan had invaded Korea and was sticking pikes in the graves of sacred ground. And so they said, America bombed Japan, we got our country back. That kind of thing, that sort of emotional weight is not the weight of a Japanese Godzilla movie to tell, but it does, I think, architect the choices that they make in this movie about addressing at least something that the war machine created that was vile during that process. And I think that is a sensitive choice that I haven't seen a Godzilla movie make before.
Yeah. There's a sequence where, we have all these former Navy folk who are signing up for this, and then they're like, we can't guarantee that anyone's coming back alive. And they're like, if you need to go back and just, spend the rest of your time with your family, presumably Godzilla might come and kill you then with them, and go ahead. And it's not this rah, like, oh, you were less than or anything like that. It's surprisingly sensitive. And then, the ending of it, I guess we could jump all the way there for a second. But the ending of it gets to have it in every single way of oh gosh, all the Navy's going to die. That feels emotionally satisfying in some way. Oh gosh, now here he comes. Shikishima is going to come and kamikaze it. Oh, that feels so emotionally satisfying in some way. Oh, he survived. That feels emotionally satisfying. It just keeps hitting all of those notes so well.
Yeah, when that plane just jams in Godzilla's mouth, I was like, oh,
yeah,
that's that. I was thinking, I was expecting more of an Independence Day, fly down into his stomach, and you're like, look out, guiding around the teeth,
some pithy noise,
inside the thing. And instead, it was just clunk. Okay, I guess physics are real.
That was so satisfying, though, right? Mm-hmm. The sound and everything was so good,
so good. And also, I love the message of coming kind of full circle to the host, which feels hopeful at the end. The message of live. Showing him here's how to because they were talking about the planes didn't have an eject option, so you're going down no matter what. They didn't find a reason for it, and that's sort of revealed yes, you have this, please use it because we want you to live. And I loved that. I thought that was so just another hopeful moment in this monster movie.
Really, really beautiful. I mean, I was people again. I sort of avoid giant monster movies, but people were telling me oh, I cried at the end of Godzilla Minus One. I didn't believe them.
That was me.
They were saying that they were saying it's a legitimate companion piece to Oppenheimer. We're not saying that to be funny. These movies came out at the same time. It was no, you're being insensitive. That's impossible. That's not funny. But no, they're right. I mean, it's legitimate companion piece to the big questions there that, the movie offers more questions and answers about the legacy of World War II and all of that. And I was totally surprised by it. Can we talk about the design of this Godzilla? Because it is, the 37th Godzilla movie. I think in some ways it's paying homage to the original. It maybe feels more like there's a person in there, in a rubber suit, but it's not, it's CG. And I do like what Tom was saying, like we can have it on the land and it's one thing, and in the water, in the Jaws sort of sequences, it's an entirely different thing.
I love them thick thighs. I love them thick thighs. Love it so much. I love the face. I love the detail. I love the eyes changing. I love this design so much. The spikes on the back, the power that I feel like it truly feels so powerful, which they're obviously trying to do in the American versions of this as well. But I just the power that this creature commands is incredible to me.
I've seen so few Godzilla movies. Is that new, the thing of the plates gearing up and shooting out of the back when it's time to do the heat ray, or has that always been a feature?
That is not in the ones that I have seen.
I think it's not normal. It's not standard,
right.
But I don't think this movie invented it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it's actually interesting to look at that. I some BuzzFeed Screen Rant something or other link I found, which actually has a comparison of all the Godzillas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting to look at them, especially in line with this one. One of the things they did in Godzilla Minus One, clearly, I haven't read anybody's intention about it, but was to stay true to the overall shape of the man in the suit, right? And make it feel like this was the Godzilla that we've known all along. And that principle was deeply violated in the late 90s, 2000s Godzillas, because like the 1998 Godzilla was much more of a T-Rex kind of head, and it crouched, and it's very reptilian.
It's an iguanodon.
It is.
Yes,
it is.
Yeah.
It was not. It totally betrays the spirit of what Godzilla was.
I'm trying to think if the Mike Doherty one does. That was the first. I think that was the first one after the Matthew Broderick one. Is that right? I may be wrong. People are going to just come after me for this.
This is the 2014 Godzilla.
Yeah, I want to say there was an element of it. I could be wrong. Sorry, everybody out there if I'm wrong, because I saw all those movies kind of together. And then we had the Kong and Godzilla, and there's Monarch, and there's a lot to keep track of. I'm sorry. They're going to be like, this dumb bitch. I want to say there was an element of it charging up. But I don't know if the plates are I can't quite.
I don't know if they move, but they light up.
Yeah, something I know. I'm almost positive something happens there, but it definitely does not have the power that this creature has.
Yeah. Well, and then, of course, they did the Shin Godzilla, which has just a very long tail and a lot of red in its chest. It looks very raw, it's just kind of open, it's just covered in open wounds,
right?
It looks good, but they all have that same feeling that you could see maybe a guy in a suit with his eyes right behind the eyes, it actually looks like that. And I think this is a really great kind of homage to original Godzilla, and yet it looks so much more threatening. It captures just about everything.
Yeah, it's the first Oscar nomination for any of the Godzilla movies, and for visual effects, it's the first one to win. And even the design of the face, which you don't really get to stare directly at until you're in the water sequences, jaw sequences, which I think are really interesting, because we see him first as these spines that come up, which look to me like a coral reef that's mad at you, and it comes up like that. And then when he gets its face, it has just enough articulation that maybe it doesn't literally have angry eyes because it's mad at you, because I don't know if it really cares who you are, but enough that it becomes personal. You stare right at Godzilla's eyes. He's like, oh, what have I done to make Godzilla upset with me?
And I think they do a fantastic job of demonstrating its core power, which is, it gets hurt and it comes back and it rebuilds. There is one kind of lingering look at its face out of the water when it's just flaming and the fire goes out as its skin comes back together.
Yes, really, really good. So I'm glad that I forced myself to watch another Godzilla movie. Anyone else have anything else about Godzilla Minus One.
Can't wait for the sequel.
Yeah.
Or
When does
how
that come out?
about this
I thought it was
year?
this year.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, I
Mhm.
do have one last thing to say. I don't know which kind of subtitles my thing was set on, but it also talked about the music a lot. And there was so much resolute music. There was constant resolute music plays
Oh,
and resolute
wild.
music fades out. And at one point, the music was even tenacious.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, mine didn't say that.
I loved it. I think I maybe
That's
accidentally
good.
put it on like closed caption, something like that. Because
Yeah.
it was describing like all sorts of stuff.
Descriptive.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah,
It was
yeah.
No,
resolute
that's really
music,
good.
and then at one point I was like tenacious, and I was like, Foster, it's tenacious.
All right. So yes, any last ideas about our overall theme of the giant monster movies? Go big, go home.
Yes, I have ideas. It was awesome. And I think what's so interesting about it is that like the institutional failure in each of these movies, this is
Mhm.
like these are like blue collar fights, right? Because who actually fights? Like they're not really soldiers. Soldiers are present, but they're not authorities. They're not experts. They're like, here's the food stand delivery family and his siblings, and a traumatized ex-pilot who has no authority in the rank at all. And here's a burnt out government employee with no support from the bureaucracy. Like, it's just these lone guys who are standing up and fighting for what is right. And I think that is such a representation of an indictment of governments and leaders that, you know, God, South Korea's complicity with American negligence, right, is incredible. Japan abandoning its citizens after the war. Norway, I don't know what they're, just secrets, I guess.
What's the failures of socialism?
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah,
of socialized Scandinavian bureaucracy.
I think that is really consistent across all of these, and I don't think I expected to see them, especially from such different cultures, to be so consistent and consistently anti-American. That I expected, but to be so consistent an indictment of their own systems that that we actually get a sense from each of these that national identity is their monster, right? Like that is such an interesting thing to me. I really liked watching these together.
Yeah.
That was a neat trick.
All right. Well, next up to pick our curriculum for March is going to be Chelsea Stardust.
And it's my birthday month.
Birthday month.
Excellent.
Yeah. So also we're doing this on Friday the 13th. Happy Friday the 13th to all who observe.
Oh, you're right.
That's today. Yeah. So I decided to do, knowing what this one was, I'm going in the total opposite direction. And my, so the next one will be Sitting in the Dark on an Ultra Low Budget. And so these are films that were made for very little money that I am a big fan of. So not in any particular order, but from 2012, Jeremy Gardner's The Battery, which is going to be a great segue to, I think, what Pete is going to want to do next. I just remembered what that movie's like, that has to do with.
Okay.
2021's Hellbender by the Addams Family, and 2014's Starry Eyes by Dennis
I haven't heard of any of these.
and
Me
Kevin
neither.
Helch.
Nope. Sorry.
And I do
Oh
want
my
to say,
gosh.
because people, again, we'll talk about it. I know Terrifier was made for $35K. I am aware, but we're going to go for ones that are maybe a little lesser known.
Oh, totally. I cannot. I mean, when's the last time we had a threefer that I haven't
seen any
that
of
we
I
haven't
have
heard
not
of?
heard of them.
I'm so
Yeah.
excited. I will text you where you can stream them.
Oh,
Wonderful.
okay.
It's great. Awesome. Well, with Kynan, thank you. What an
Thank you,
awesome
Oh,
Kynan.
so
This was
good.
great.
journey.
Thank you.
Great choice.
So fun.
Well done. And thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to this show. We sure appreciate your time and attention. Make sure you do all the stuff you do with podcasts. And if you'd like to get longer ad-free episodes of the show, visit truestory.fm/join and subscribe. For a few bucks a month, you'll have access to the beefier show, plus all the triple secret Discord channels on the True Story FM server. We would love to have you there. On behalf of Tommy Metz III and Chelsea Stardust and Kynan Diaz, larger than life. I'm Pete Wright. We'll see you next month right here, sitting in the dark.